The second big factor dominating our future is the customer. And by the customer, I mean your household, your businesses. And I think the most important thing that we've achieved at Transpower in the last 5-6 years is to change the company round so that our staff now know we're a service business. We're not an asset business. And getting the team to think about that and think about the customer is probably the biggest shift we've made. Now, electricity companies around the world think of themselves as asset companies. And customers are just statistics down the end of the line. And that's wrong. Our customers don't care about our assets. They don't care if a transformer explodes. All they care about is whether the lights are on or off. So we've talked a lot in the last year or two about what matters to them. No real surprises. Expectations vary by location and by the type of load. So starting next year, we'll shift our performance targets and we'll have ones for each substation. And it'll reflect whether that substation is supplying a CBD or a rural load or an essential industrial facility, all of which have different requirements. And we're not forgetting our generators either. We're their path to market, and it's all very well having cheap renewables like wind and water, but it's of no value if you have to spill them because some transmission constraint develops. And getting that shift and looking at our operations from the customer's viewpoint really opens up new opportunities. And one's demand side. None of our customers actually need the lights on 100% of the time. Take a supermarket. They absolutely need their FPOS machine 100% of the time. But if their freezer goes off for half an hour or something, they don't care as long as the ice cream stays firm. So demand side's all about buying the option to turn the freezer off when the grid gets stressed. And we are, both as system owner and grid owner, big advocates of demand side. We think the technology's there and we think it can produce big value for us. Look, it's way better economically a lot of the time for us to buy the capability to turn the freezer off than it is to build the grid capacity to keep the freezer on. So we've extended our pretty major demand side program again this year. And it's showing success, and we really do appreciate the support we get from our regulator, the Commerce Commission, on that program, and the support we get from the Electricity Authority. But that focus on customers is also important to how we run the grid minute by minute. Decisions on where we invest and what we do in assets is now driven by the impact on the customers, and it allows you to prioritise where you spend and push money by what the outcome is to customers rather than thinking about my ageing transformer. And that's part of the focus in grid performance which produced that savings in maintenance last year. And it will reduce our capex going forward as we just spend our money smarter to deliver that better customer outcome. So last year we commissioned successfully and early Maximo, an industry-leading software asset management package. And that'll put the information we need to make those sort of customer decisions right at the engineer's fingertips. So far, with this new look at life and combined with our technologies under transmission tomorrow, if I look back over what we were forecasting 4 or 5 years ago for our next, say, 5-year spend, to my count, it's nearly $1 billion less capex, something like 600 or 700 million. Depending on how you count it, that we've worked out ways to save. And looking at, probably Garth won't say, please don't hold me to it, but our sort of projections on what we can do on maintenance spend through to about 2020, we will be cutting something of the order of 10 to 20 million a year off our maintenance, and we'll deliver all that with improving reliability. So as I noted, we'll continue to invest in that core engineering capability, which we think we're in pretty good shape now. But it's not limited to the office. We've got some real challenges in the field with our field staff. We're rolling out electronics and controls, which are really a sort of new breed of stuff. And we've got to bring our field capability along to have the ability to manage that. Of those 12 outages last year, 9 of them had a human factor in them, either causing the outage or a missed opportunity to shorten the outage. So 9 out of 12. It's a pretty stark number. And the biggest of them, which also turned off my woolshed, Garth, thank you very much, a big one on just before Christmas up the east coast. I mean, we had a series of human factors in it. It's going to happen, but it's a hell of an opportunity to improve. And I'm sorry to admit the big one we had in Nelson last night, we think it was human factor. Very complex commissioning, but we got it wrong. It will happen, but we reckon we can cut those quite a lot. So in our training capability, we've sort of rebuilt it, rebranded it, moved it to Palmerston North, called it Grid Skills. It's how all our technicians, etc., get trained, and we've increased its budget quite considerably for each of the next 7 years. But we're not just about engineering. We have about 20,000 landowners whose land we occupy. They're reluctantly hosting our lines. And we've put a huge focus in the last 5 years on improving our relationship with those landowners so that we earn their cooperation rather than thinking we can rely on the Electricity Act. And we're not perfect. We make mistakes. I don't know how many visits we do a year. It's probably 30,000 or 40,000 where we have to call the landowner, say we're coming, open the gates, shut the gates. It's a big target. And we do make mistakes. And we're pretty lucky with our landowners because they're pretty tolerant and they're pretty forgiving. And thank them for that. But we are getting better. And this year we have just completed our first survey of landowners. A big cross-section, ones we visited about how we did. And I was pretty surprised. We scored an 88% of high satisfaction, which is bloody good and surprised me. But guys, we've got to work on that remaining 12% and see what we're doing wrong. And part of our success with the sort of, particularly the rural communities, has been our community care fund and our Green Line fund, where we put something back into the communities, paint the hall or whatever, all unbranded, that we impact. Finally, last but not least, I must mention safety. Gratifyingly, I can say it's in our DNA now. I mean, 800 staff odd, and they all live and die it, and it's genuine. And we've improved quite considerably, but we compare ourselves to the best of our peers overseas. We're still behind the 8 ball. Last year we had 34 medical treatment injuries. Our target was pretty aggressive, was 26, so we failed. On average, we have about 2,000 people working, so probably over 1,000 every day last year working out in the field on the grid, so that's, 1 in 30 had a medical treatment injury. Probably a third of those were lost time. Gratifyingly, most of them were manual handling, stitches, crushes, and we haven't had, touch wood, a major electrical incident for quite a long time. But the problem is that small accidents, if you have enough of them, you know it's going to lead to a big one. And tragically last year in February, or this year, we had a self-employed agricultural spraying contractor working for one of our service providers in the Lower South Island who died in an off-road accident going to our spray site. Was it avoidable? Absolutely. Do we feel accountable, and are we accountable? The answer is yes. So, in summary, an excellent year, but we've still got lots of work to be as good as we can, and we're pretty focused on doing that. Thanks to my board for their support and commitment, but special thanks to all the wider Transpower team for their efforts last year, and most importantly, my thanks to you, our stakeholders, landowners, and effectively shareholders for your cooperation and understanding and support. So thank you.